Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. We've got a lot to cover today at this year's Environmental Summit. So, as many of you know, as we gather every year in advance of the state legislative session, the goal is really to review the key environmental issues that we anticipate will be on the legislative agenda at the state capitol this year. So, there's no hiding from the fact that our federal government is attempting to roll back decades of actions that include sweeping reforms to weaken or eliminate the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, to open up the Arctic and our oceans with unchecked oil drilling, and to block efforts by our own state to produce clean solar and wind energy. But you know all that. Today is about what we and our elected leaders can do as a state to protect our environment, to make progress in key areas of land, water, climate protection, clean energy, waste reduction, and a lot more that you're going to hear about today. The people in this room, you all, are on the front lines. You are the ones who are moving the dial on the environment in Connecticut. Um, it's really time now. This is a moment to take really strong, clear positions, defensible positions, and to make sure that our legislative leaders and our elected leaders are determined to be effective environmental champions. They need to know that for important bills, when they push forward important legislations, we're going to be there to rally support and make sure that we have their back if they're taking the lead on issues that we care about. We have to show up and support and talk. Um, we should also no longer accommodate people who want to roll back our progress. Now is the time to really stand up and fight and push back. We've got good things that we can fight for this year that you'll hear about. So today we really hope that you'll learn about a range of legislative opportunities that are on the table this year, and take note of what our speakers are saying that we can do next to support these efforts. And then get ready to do more than you've ever done before. You do a lot, but be prepared. It's going to be a tight, short session, and we really need to make some noise to make sure that we cut through the fray and make the positions that we want known. And with that, and also throughout the day, there's going to be opportunities to ask questions through your phones by logging into the Sligo program. And Lily has been setting that up. There'll be a QR code where you can aim your phone and it will take you right to a place where you can type in your question. Um, and that, if we do not get to the questions, there'll be an option for the moderators to ask the questions or their own. But if we don't get to your questions, we encourage you to put the questions in anyway, because we'll make sure that we get a response to you from the presenters after the fact, but we'll follow up. And then with that, I'm going to pass the mic to CTLCV board chair and CEO, Joe McGee. He was one of the original founding board members of the League of Conservation Voters here in Connecticut, and he's recently rejoined the board. So Joe has long advocated that business growth and environmental protection are not in conflict. He has experience in both. He's the former DECD Commissioner of Economic Development. And he's also served and been appointed to many, like the Two Storm Panel and many boards that he serves on that do focus on environmental protection. So he really understands the connection there. So here, Joe, you want to come up and you can kick it off? Thank you. Thank you.
My concession to age. Well, good morning, and thank you very much for coming to our 26th annual Environmental Summit. Well, I'm hoping this works on here. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. We are so pleased to welcome you to this year's sold-out event. I want to make a special note to thank you all here in this auditorium and those joining us online. Your expertise and leadership on the issues that we are highlighting today is what makes this summit possible. So again, thank you. Without you, this would not be possible. To our financial sponsors, particularly our gold sponsor, the Hampshire Foundation. Thank you. As a special shout out to our board, particularly Mary Hogue, who is the co-chair of the organization, the chair of our C3. Mary. And the staff, Lori, Connor, Michael, Lillian, Gracie, put all this together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to our host, the Connecticut State Community College, thank you for a great venue. It is a terrific venue and your hospitality. So thank you all. Now, my real job is to introduce Attorney General William Tong. William Tong, yep, here he is. See, you're giving him an ovation before he speaks. I hope this goes well, William. William is the 25th Attorney General to serve Connecticut. He first took office in 2019 and is currently serving his second term. He has emerged as a national leader in some of the most significant lawsuits and investigations of the last decade, including holding corporations like Purdue Pharma accountable for their role in the opioid crisis. He is here this morning to speak to us about his environmental leadership and the challenges Connecticut faces from the threat of national leaders attempting to roll back environmental gains we've made. Under his leadership, Connecticut sued ExxonMobil to end its ongoing systemic campaign of lies about the impact of fossil fuels on the climate. On January 12th, he announced that the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia had blocked the Trump administration's latest effort to block Revolution Wind's offshore wind project. That's a big deal. Thank you, William. And it is now my pleasure and my privilege to introduce Attorney William Tong, a Connecticut environmental champion.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to get this mic right. Let me first start by saying that hard to believe, but I have begun my 8th year as Attorney General. It is my 20th year in elective office at the state level. I was a state legislator for 12 years, as many of you know. And during my entire 20-year service, Lori Brown has always been our lodestar for conservation here in this state. So let's give Lori a round of applause. But of course, you just celebrated your 25th birthday, so what do you want to talk about? There's so much to talk about. I was given 10 minutes. But let me just say, of course, you know what's happening, right? This is an unprecedented attack right now waged by the president and the federal government on people. An unprecedented attack on our climate, our environment, our natural resources. And yes, it really is that bad. And you just have to open the paper, any paper, frankly, and you can see the attack on power, on wind power, the attack on the endangerment finding, the dismantling of the Environmental Protection Agency, which began in Trump 1 and which I fought 7 years ago in Trump 1, and we are continuing to fight. The Chevron doctrine, the reversing of the Chevron doctrine for you lawyers did great damage to our environmental regulatory infrastructure in this country. And so, given that it is so bad, and it really is so bad at times, what do we do? Well, I was reminded of something a wise man once told me. His name is Joe McGee. In 2013, I lost a campaign for mayor of Stamford that I had no business losing. I lost by less than 200 votes. And at that time, I was firmly on my back. I thought that I would never run for another elected office. I was in a real funk for a long time. And I went to see my friend Joe. And Joe said, "You know what, William? Politics is all about how you get up off the canvas. And the key is to win more than you lose. We have to get up off the canvas right now and win more than we lose. We have to fight back as a coalition, as a team of advocates. We have to take the fight to the president and Donald Trump and his administration and fight for our environment, our natural resources, and our future. Are you with me in this fight?" What that means is, when Donald Trump issues an executive order, an unlawful executive order to stop work on Revolution Wind, we have to get in the fight. So the first time we went in, we sued, we stopped him, and the workers went back on the job. And then right before Christmas, after he tried to take food stamps away from people, right before Christmas, he tried to stop work on Revolution Wind. Again, we went back into court and we beat him, and those workers are back on the job, and we will have wind power from Revolution Wind in February. We were on our backs. We were on our backs, and we got up off the canvas, right? With respect to the endangerment finding, they're not just content with dismantling the EPA, but dismantling the very regulatory finding that enables us as a people, as a country, to protect our climate. The Supreme Court in Massachusetts versus EPA, right, said that the federal government, that we together can regulate greenhouse gases to protect our climate and to protect our communities and protect our people. We are on our back because Lee Zeldin has done so much damage, but we are getting up and we are fighting and we are suing and we are going to protect the endangerment finding. With respect to the climate, very quickly, when I became Attorney General 7 years ago, I said, we need to use the power and authority of this office to protect our climate. I want a climate case. And the head of our environment section, Matt Levine, some of you know Matt, I said, "Matt, I want to take action to protect the climate." And he looked at me and he's like, "Okay, that's a big job." And he comes back to me 2 years later and he says, "I've got it, boss. We have a case. We're going to bring a case against ExxonMobil." And I said, "Great. Tell me about the case." And he said, "Well, ExxonMobil developed climate science over the last 70 years. Their scientists developed the science that taught us, my generation, about greenhouse gases, right? About global warming, which is what we called it back in the day. And it was ExxonMobil that understood the impact of fossil fuels, not just in the climate, but rising sea levels, and that they had to change the height of their drilling platforms to accommodate for the changing climate. And then it was ExxonMobil that turned its back in the late 70s and early 80s on its own science and then began to lie to us about climate change. See, the thing is, you can't lie to people when you sell goods and services. That's bedrock consumer protection law. So I've sued ExxonMobil for lying to us about the climate. Now, the one funny thing is, so Matt says to me, "All right, we're going to bring this case. It's going to be great. We're going to tell the story back to the 1950s." And I said, "Hold on a second, Matt. How can we do that?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you can't go all the way back to the 1950s. Isn't there a statute of limitations?" and he said, Mr. Attorney General, in Connecticut, there's no statute of limitations against the state. Time doesn't run against the king in Connecticut. So it's good to be the king. So that case has withstood a number of challenges by ExxonMobil. We are winning that case and we intend to take it all the way. And then finally on PFAS, this is incredibly important and it impacts all of us in our clean water, the water that we drink, the water that nourishes and sustains us, that water right there in that picture. And we are leading a national coalition. There are multiple suits in South Carolina and across the country. We have sued all the big producers of PFAS and PFAS and PFOA, and we are holding them accountable for the damage that they're doing to our natural resources. So that's the big picture. The message I wanted to bring here today is this fight, our fight, needs you here at home. And yes, it's easy to get, I'll use the word distracted by all the big fights, the endangerment finding, right? Climate change writ large. And people ask me, well, what should we do in these moments? How should we fight? And the first thing I say to people is, number one, help somebody, help a neighbor, help a friend, help your local immigrants. But also address what's in front of you, okay? I hesitated to use the word distraction because it's not a distraction to fight the big battles. We have to fight them. But keep your eye on the ball with what's in front of you, like Revolution Wind. That's right in front of us. Speak out about the need for 350,000 homes to receive wind power. Speak out on the need for more generation in this state. Talk about and advocate for the remediation of English Station in New Haven and the contaminated ground there in New Haven. Put pressure with me on United Illuminating to pay to take that building down and remediate that site. That's their responsibility. They made that commitment and they should make good on it. Focus on our water, the discharges, right, on the Massachusetts border into our waterways, and the fact that that is largely addressed by the EPA and the federal government. Get in that fight. Get in the fight about the sale of Aquarian. Why is that important? It's not just about utilities. It's not just about rates. At some point, somebody will have to remediate the PFAS in that water served by Aquarian, RWA, or somebody else. That's why it's so important that you get in that fight and make sure that whoever takes over that water utility will have the resources and that we can pay as ratepayers to address the PFAS crisis. That is an estuary, I assume, I'm not sure where it is. Maybe Branford, coastline, something like that. There should be herring running through those estuaries. But our herring population has been decimated by the climate, by overfishing. There should be striped bass chasing those herring. But our striped bass population has been decimated. They should be swimming among horseshoe crabs in the Sound, and that population has been decimated. And if they survive and they end up in an estuary like that or in the Housatonic River, they are constantly attacked by poachers and lawlessness. This is right in front of us. There's no sound. There's no healthy sound. There's no healthy water supply without a healthy sound. Focus on what's in front of us and fight for the sound and the wildlife and the ecology in one of our most important waterways and watercourses. Focus on what's in front of you. This session, there are big fights, some of which are big and symbolic, and those are important, yes. But let's focus on concrete action items to protect our natural resources and our environment. Let me close with this thought. The most often I hear from people right now over the last year, although this fight's been going on for 7 years, people come up to me and they're exasperated, they're frustrated, they're upset, and they say, I don't recognize my country anymore. I don't know what to do with all this nervous energy, and I'm really afraid for our country. And I stop them and I just say firmly for a second, just get them to focus. I hear you. I'm scared too at times. I mean, how can you not be with the murder of Renee Good and the things that we see across this country? How can you not be scared? And though at times I am scared, I am not afraid. And that is really important. I am not afraid to get up off the canvas and fight. I am not afraid because there are people in cancer clusters across this country who really have something to be afraid of because of the damage that's been done to the water they drink or the air that they breathe. I am not afraid because in Arizona and in other parts of the country, and yes, here in Connecticut, extreme weather threatens people and lives, extreme temperatures. They've got something to be afraid of. I am not afraid because I'm standing here in the former G Fox. This is where I came as a kid to see Santa Claus, I think on this floor. And my parents and grandparents ran for their lives from the Japanese, from the communists, from homelessness, from hunger, from poverty. And they found their way, of all places, to Hartford, Connecticut, and G Fox. They had everything to be afraid of. We have nothing to be afraid of, and we have an obligation to stand up, each and every one of us, and stare him in the eye and say, we are not afraid of you. Let's get out there and fight.